The Coast Guard is the oldest seagoing member of the United States Armed Forces, though not a regular part of the Defense Department. In peacetime, it is a law enforcement agency of the Transportation Department. Oh. In wartime, it becomes an active part of the United States Navy. Yeah. Now, the Coast Guard enforces all federal laws governing ships, even the smallest motorboats, in all United States waters and on the high seas. It also enforces revenue, customs, immigration, quarantine, and conservation laws. Its other duties include protection of fisheries, medical help to crews of ships at sea, care of shipwrecked sailors, and weather and iceberg patrols. It operates the lighthouses, radio beacons, ocean weather stations, life-saving stations, and rescue work. Yeah. Now, I've been out to the Coast Guard station there on the Hook. Yes. The Dungeness Spit. Poop. Quite a long time ago, I went out there and I was working for Tom's Best Built. A friend of mine had a construction company. Yes. Well, I was the outside sales representative for his business, and I thought, well, why don't I drive out to the Coast Guard there on the Dungeness Spit and find out if they have this monthly newsletter where you can put an advertisement in their newsletter. You know, a lot of these government agencies and departments, their employees get the newsletter, yes, as part of the promotion of their individual agency or department. So I drive out there. I'm talking to the guard, and I'm like, well, do you have a bulletin board that I could put up a little business card as an individual that likes to contract some additional construction work for Tom's Best Built? Yeah. Well, they said, we don't really have a bulletin board at the Coast Guard station. And I thought, you should. A lot of people that have this 2-year rotation in the military, yes, where they move to a new city, yes, they're stationed at the Coast Guard. Quite often they want to buy a place and they want to fix it up and they want to employ a contractor to do the work for them. Yes. Well, I was a little upset about it because I thought, when you have a 2-year rotation, yes, wouldn't it be better to have a 5-year rotation so that you could get a mortgage? Yes, you could buy a place, right? You can employ a contractor to fix it up the way that you want. Yes, you could build some equity and then you could be restationed someplace else. Well, while out there on the Dungeness Spit, pooch, I found out they don't have a bulletin board in their actual Coast Guard station. Yeah. Now, I had emailed the Coast Guard, and it looks to me like they are law enforcement. Yes, as the United States Code had told me that if they do know a felony or they have the sufficient evidence for an arrest for felony, yes, they can actually be sued for refusing to do that. Pooh! Now, just so you know, Coast Guard, yes, I'm going to want to know all of those stationed at each and every Coast Guard location of the United States. It says that your actual law enforcement, and before the formation, yes, of what is known as Homeland Security, you used to be a part of the Transportation Department of the United States of America. Now, in wartime, yeah, you become an active part of the United States Navy, yes. And it says here that you are really watching over 40,000 miles of shoreline throughout the United States and in the Virgin Islands. Yes, 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 yes. This 40,000 miles of shoreline, that would be considered the border of the United States. Yeah, that part that's next to the oceans that you're watching. Yeah. Somehow I think the United States doesn't really want their shoreline. Now, let's say I went through every individual in the Coast Guard for the last 40 years that does know about misprision of felony. Yeah, misprision of treason. Poop. Now, I know Homeland Security would say, well, in 2003, we actually took the Coast Guard underneath ourselves. And I did email them. Email them. Now, I'm wanting ownership of that actual Dungeness Spit. Yes. And as much as you would say, well, you're a not-for-profit or you're some sort of agency of the United States government, yes, If a church has to pay back the exempt property taxes at the time of the sale of the actual property, does the Coast Guard have a tax exemption for any of your bases? Because it could be that the counties require a tax exempt status to be, well, if you're a charity. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. And you have to pay back the tax exempt property taxes for as long as you're a 501c3. If you're a Coast Guard, yes. Do you have to pay property taxes? Because I think that if charities have to pay back, yes, at the time of sale to a private individual, the military should pay back their fucking property